Alright guys, today we're going to be investigating a river basin. We learned the other day all about our rivers, our different parts. Remember, our river begins at the headwaters, which is typically in a mountain region, and it ends in our mouth of our river. That'll be into a larger body of water, such as a bigger river, a lake, or even the ocean. So we're going to be investigating, if you will, one of North Carolina's river basin, and the one that you investigate is going to be dependent on where you live. So right here in green is what we call the Cape Fear River Basin, which is where most of us live and reside. And remember, a river basin is anywhere where water will drain into that river. So it's a defined area, so that means if the water doesn't infiltrate, remember that means water going down and becoming part of the groundwater. If it doesn't infiltrate when the water rains, then it's going to eventually run off and make its way into that river basin if it's inside that region. So that means that any rain that happens and lands here at Emerald, if it doesn't already go into the ground, it's going to make its way to the Cape Fear River eventually, which is pretty awesome. So I want you to identify first where you personally live and what river basin that's going to be. For most of us, that's going to be the Cape Fear River, but if you live in Lumberton, you're actually part of the Lumber River Basin. Let's go to our assignments real quick. I hope that you're already watching this video for a brief overview of what a river basin is. Now you're going to complete this right here. You're going to want to make your own or download this. So you do that by clicking this right here. It'll let you download it. When you download it, it's going to let you type into these boxes. You're going to do some investigation. So this right here says that each river in North Carolina is unique, yet all 17 river basins have common functions important to all people living within their boundaries. All river basins have public access to waterways, sources of drinking water, and a means through which wastewater is treated before it returns to the community's rivers and streams. In preparation for creating your map, which we're not actually going to do, we're just going to go to Google Maps right here, and you're going to use the satellite or terrain option so that we can find this information. Now on Google Maps, you're going to find your river in the river basin, or find your house, and then identify which river basin you live in. So what's the name of the river? Then you're going to zoom out and find the headwaters. Now again, remember that's typically going to be in a mountain region. You can also, if you can't identify it on a map, you can Google what the headwaters is, but that's okay. And then maybe try and tell me if you are really close to the river. This can be relative or this can be miles. The point nearest to your home. So tell me where that is. It could be relative. It could be like, it looks like, about a mile away or whatnot. As you're on Google Maps, I'd like you to try to find a tributary. Remember we said that's a creek or stream, a smaller river that flows into the main river that you're investigating, so either the Cape Fear or the Lumber River. Write the names of 2 streets nearest that creek or stream. So not only do I want you to identify the tributary, I want you to identify some streets that are near that. That's important because as we talk about our rivers and also how we pollute them, many times, because water is a universal solvent, it carries things with it as it flows over the land. So we talked about in class, if you were with me, or on the lecture, we talked about how as the water runs over the cropland or our possible animal farms, or even if we're thinking the roadways, it's bringing with it all that debris. So if you think of a roadway, hopefully we've all seen oil, not hopefully, but I expect that you have seen maybe oil on the road, or gasoline perhaps, but as water washes that gasoline away, it doesn't just go away, it goes into a different system. So it goes into a different system, and that's often a river, or into our drains, which flow eventually into a river most likely, or a treatment plant. But anyways, so the point here is that because these streets are really close to the streams that lead into the river, it can be a source of pollution for that river. The next thing I want you to do, question number 3, asks you to find a public access. So are there points on which you can access your river? These might be locks or dams. These might be actual parks. Why don't you write those down and try to find an address if you can. If there's no street address available, use the names of the roads at the nearest major intersection. So let's find at least 2 of those. Question number 4 asks you about the drinking water. And before we go, so public accesses are important, one, because remember how we talked about, or we didn't talk about this, but the more people there are, generally the more pollution there is in a system. So if we have more people being able to access our river, we might find things like trash in the river. If the public access is a common hangout, there could be trash. We could get some of our recreational vehicle liquid spills, like I might find gasoline or oil from a boat, which would easily pollute my water. We might also just simply find some sediments. If the area was once covered by grass and trees, that's going to hold the sediments in, but if I had cleared it so that people and cars could go down towards the river, then it's likely that as the rain flows over that and we get some runoff, it's going to carry that sediment that was on the bank into, it's going to erode it into the river. So that's pretty important. Number 4 asks you to identify the drinking water sources along that river. So write the address of the location at which drinking water is supplied or treated for your town or city. If your town does not have a treatment plant and your family uses well water, use your home address. So this would be a question you're going to ask your parents, mom or dad, or grandma or grandpa, or whoever it is you live with. Do we use well water or do we use city water? If you use well water, your ground's coming from an underground aquifer, which is pretty awesome and something we'll talk a lot about in Earth and Environmental Science. But basically, you are pumping the water from underneath our feet up into your house so you can use it for things like showering, flushing the toilet, or doing the dishes. If your family uses city water, that means that your water comes from a treatment plant. You're going to want to ask them, does it come from the treatment plant? And then you might even be able to ask them where your local treatment plant is. If they don't know, Google should know your answer. You would look up treatment plant for Elizabethtown, North Carolina, or so forth. Or your treatment plant. The last thing I want you to do kind of goes along with number 4, but do you have a wastewater treatment plant? So most should have a wastewater treatment plant. Again, this is going to go whether you live in the city or whether you live out of town. Now, if you live out of town, similar to how you would have a well, you're going to have a septic system. So if you ask your parents, do we have a septic system? If they say no, that means that your wastewater goes to be treated somewhere, and you need to try and find that location. Again, Google might be able to help you with this if your parents cannot. If your house has its own septic system, you're going to use your own address and write septic system here. Septic systems are they're okay. They're a different way to treat water, which we'll learn about in another lecture when we go over water treatment. Alright guys, I hope this helped. I know this was a little bit of a longer introduction to your activity, but I really wanted to make sure that you do the activity to the fullest. If you email me with questions, the very first thing I'm going to ask you is, did you watch the video? If you still didn't, you need help, I am an email away. Have a great day, guys.